All right, let's go to the gridiron, Lewis,
Yes.
where the Panthers schedule is out. We know the dates of each of the games that they'll play in for the 2023 season. We're going to do a draft back and forth, Lewis, and we'll go 3 games each. I will give you the very first pick. Weeks 1 through 18, week 7 is the bye. Weeks 1 through 18, the game you're most excited to watch on the Panther schedule. You get the top pick, and we'll just go back and forth instead of a snake draft. We'll just go back to back to back to back.
Sure. I think the easy number one choice for me is the second game of the season versus the New Orleans Saints, September 18th, Monday Night Football. It's the home opener. Assuming Bryce Young is able to take control of this offense and become the starter, it would be his first home start. Like I said, it's Monday Night Football. The Saints are a really good team. I think that the Saints are going to be, right there. Like, I think they would be the favorite to win the NFC South this year. And so if the Panthers want to take that next step, and instead of just competing for the division to win the division and get back to the playoffs, I think you have to establish early by beating your divisional rivals, especially the Saints. That's just going to be a really fun environment more than anything.
Yes, and the Panthers opening their schedule with back-to-back opponents against their NFC South division opponents. So they'll open against the Falcons on the road in week 1, week 2 against the Saints. The reason why I scoffed, Lewis, that was my pick for number 1 top game.
It's easy. It's an easy one.
Sure. And you still have hope early on in the season, as all 32 teams do. Anything's really possible that early on in the season. Okay. Having said all of that, let me go with my top pick. I would then go with week 2 off the board. Let me go week 10, Panthers at Bears. And here's the reason I say this.
Okay.
The reason why you have Bryce Young number 1 overall was that monster deal with the Bears. You also want to beat the Bears because Chicago gets your first round draft pick for 2024. So there's going to be a lot made of which team won the trade, and you're playing on Thursday Night Football in prime time. So the entire country is going to be watching you. Week 10, you're about midway through the season. Are you a contender? Where are you at with potentially a rookie quarterback and starting the season in Bryce Young? I've got Panthers at Bears in prime time, given how big the deal was to be able to get the number 1 pick and draft Bryce Young.
That's interesting. Plus, I mean, Justin Fields is phenomenal. So It's going to be really interesting to see, 2 of the good young quarterbacks in the NFL going at it. That's a good pick. I like that pick. You can't go wrong with.
I surprised you. I could tell by your facial expression. So it sounds like you're going to get your number 2 choice here.
I will.
No problem.
I will. So I don't know if this game is necessarily going to be like the best in terms of what we're seeing on the field, but I think the storylines involved, it just makes sense to me. My number 2 pick is October 29th versus the Houston Texans.
Okay.
So you have CJ Stroud, who for so long was argued as, he's going to be the number 1 pick. Oh no, it's going to be Bryce Young, that back and forth. CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are really good friends. So they grew up playing football together, essentially, and competing against each other. So that's just going to be a really fun dynamic. And I think you could be looking at a situation here too, where you have 2 teams that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks or so into the season. Those could be 2 interesting stories in the first few weeks of the season. I haven't looked at the Texans schedule, but those are 2 teams that are talented, that I think have the potential to continue to be on the up and up, coming from, being the top 2 picks in the draft. So that's more of a storylines perspective on that one.
I hope that both teams are savvy enough to start their young quarterbacks by that point, in that the Panthers have Andy Dalton and then the Texans have Davis Mills. And look, no knock on them. Everyone wants to see Bryce Young and CJ Stroud go mano a mano in that one. See, I didn't have that one as high because the Texans were a Davis Mills heave away from getting the first overall pick. So I don't have much faith in the Houston Texans in the first place.
That's fair.
So remember, while the Panthers had the top pick, they had to trade for it. Panthers had the 9th pick. I just don't have faith in, look, I want to see CJ Stroud play too. They're inevitably going to be compared throughout the duration of their career, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. But I don't think the rest of the Texans roster is very good. I will say this, though. DeMeco Ryans, their new head coach, coming over as the defensive coordinator from the 49ers, now the head coach of the Houston Texans. he should have this defense flying to the football. That should be fun to watch when he gets things rolling there in Houston. But Lewis, you took what was lower on my board. I do understand the narrative, though, between Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, two quarterbacks hopefully we get to see for the next decade plus.
All right, so what's your second pick then?
I'm going to go to week 17, and I'm going to go Panthers at Jaguars. And you've got a lot of storylines.
I kind of like that. I kind of
late
like that
in the
one.
season, are you in the hunt for the playoffs? I personally think the NFC South could be a division where a team right around 500 sneaks into the playoffs, like we saw an 8-9 Bucks team get in a season ago. Panthers and Jags came into the NFL together in 1995. Jags have a good young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. And then you get the gamesmanship, too, between Doug Peterson, who took the Jags to the playoffs in his first season. He's won a Super Bowl. And then you get him with Frank Reich, too, their time together in Philadelphia. So you got a lot of different storylines. And are both of these teams in the playoff hunt? Where are they at in terms of the playoff push? I've got Panthers at Jacksonville. And, oh, by the way, this late in the season on New Year's Eve, getting to spend that down in the Florida sunshine in the warm weather, that doesn't hurt things either, Lewis. I've got that as my second pick.
I like that because also I think too, whenever you have like those AFC, NFC teams playing each other late in the season, right? It's interesting because obviously you need the wins, right? Especially assuming the Panthers are in any kind of playoff hunt there, you're going to need most likely a dub in that situation. But whenever you have those cross conference matchups, I feel like things get a little bit weird. But also it matters a little bit less because you're not as worried about like conference records factoring in any kind of tiebreakers there. So I think it kind of lets the teams play a little bit more loose, if you will. I think that's gonna be really interesting. I do think Jacksonville's gonna be a very good team this year. So that'll be a good kind of end of season test. I could totally see that being a situation where it's like, well, the Panthers need to earn the playoffs. They got to go out and do it, so I could see that being the situation.
One other thing, too, the Jaguars have last year's number 1 overall pick in Trayvon Walker. So remember, this was a Jags team that was really down on its luck getting back-to-back first overall picks. And so Trevor Lawrence is really good. Trayvon Walker on the defensive side of the ball. I think this is a Jaguars team that's going to surprise a lot of people. And it's a measuring stick game to say, okay, Bryce Young's playing at this point. Is he better later in the season? Has he shown improvement compared to whenever he starts earlier on in the season?
Yeah, I like it. I think that's a good pick.
We each have one pick left, Lewis. You are up. Floor is yours.
This is really hard. This is really difficult at this point. But I am going to go with the late home game against the Falcons. That would be the week before Christmas Eve. I'm not saying a specific date because that day is still to be determined on the schedule. And part of that is there's going to be a lot of flexing opportunities for the NFL late in the season, like there always is. And if that's a situation where both of those teams are competing for a division title, that's a game that could get flexed in a prime time, or at least like into like the 4:00 time on CBS or Fox or whatever it might be. So I think that one's going to be big to me. I think the ceiling for the Falcons, I don't think is going to be as high as like say for the Saints or the Panthers in the NFC South. But based on at least what we saw last year with how much they're running the ball, based on drafting Bijan Robinson, so that it's really doubling down on all of that. The moves I saw them make in free agency, whether it be extending their offensive linemen or going out and getting, at least on paper, what could be one of the best secondaries in the NFC, which is, especially good because that secondary was bad last year. So bolstering themselves really, I think the Falcons are a team that's going to have a high floor. I don't think they're going to necessarily be like the best team in the NFC South, but I think it's going to be really going to be able to go out and compete against almost any team they play. So so what I'm saying here, long way to get to this point. But essentially, I just feel like that game is going to be very important for the NFC South. I could have just said that and moved on. But that's what I'm thinking. But it's tough because there are some really good games, really good matchups on this Panthers schedule.
That was literally my last pick, Lewis.
Was it really?
I'm not kidding you. Now, look, nice. Atlanta, I know you've got 3 first-round picks, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. Is it Desmond Ridder? Is it Taylor Heineke? What's going on there? But what the Falcons are doing with Arthur Smith is saying, let's load up on talented skill position players. And if you can get them the football in space, in theory, each of those players should be very, very scary to deal with in one-on-one matchups. Because if you want to double one of those players, or if you want to put 8 men in the box to take out Robinson, like I look to see what the Panthers did a season ago. Tyler Algier, who was a 5th-round pick a year ago, has an 1,000-yard season, almost 5 yards per carry. I think Bijan Robinson's heck of a lot more talented. That's going to be tough for this Panthers defense to stop. If this Panthers defense is legitimate, this is a game where division opponent, you're at home late in the season when it really matters, when the weather's colder as well. If your defense is what it's supposed to be, your defense got to carry you in a game like this, Lewis.
This is a put up or shut up type game. It's like, all right, well, one of them's got to go win it. That's the vibe that I'm getting from here, unless the Saints completely run away with this thing.
See, I'm going to pick another Florida game for my last pick, but it's also a bit of a put up or shut up game, and you're tilting your head. I'm going to go here. Week 6 on the road against the Dolphins.
I was like, they play a lot of Florida teams, so I was trying to figure out which one was left.
Here's why. Okay, is Tua the answer? He's got 2 years left on his rookie deal. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle create matchup nightmares for any opposing defense. Now, J.C. Horn and company in the secondary, are you up to snuff? You talk about Von Bell coming over from Cincinnati, Lewis. Is he going to be able to provide a top on the defense to keep those guys in check and Waddle? And, look, when we call someone Cheetah, when the nickname is literally Cheetah and Tyreek Hill, it's that. But then the next week, you've got the bye week. So where are you at first 6 weeks of the year? And honestly, it might be 500. It might be sub 500 with the rookie quarterback. But then how do you improve after the bye week? What adjustments do you make after the bye week? It's more so, where are you at going into the bye? And then what do you do on the second half of the season? So that happens. This game happens to be down in Miami as well, Lewis. We get to go there, maybe spend a day on South Beach, chilling and relaxing. I'm going to take the matchup against the Dolphins again, just because high-flying, potent offense, and this is a Dolphins team where if Tua is legit, they should be. If Tua is actually the guy, and it's not just Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, Terron Armstead, the offensive tackle, is one of the best in all of football. The Dolphins should be legitimate, and it's going to be yet another put up or shut up game, a measuring stick game, Lewis.
I like it. I like that pick. I think that's good. That's also, to me, that's one of those games that just has the potential to be more fun to watch. You know what I mean?
So I think a lot of people are going to be giving us grief, Lewis, because you've got there's a lot of great games on the schedule, like Packers at Panthers on Christmas Eve. Do
you want to do honorable mentions?
Packers at Panthers on Christmas Eve. I think you've got that. Cowboys at Panthers in week 11 as well, like the week before Thanksgiving as well. How well I think about how well traditionally those fan bases travel. Those were also on my list too.
Well, I could see that Green Bay. I almost said the Green Bay game I was thinking about, because I think people are going to be paying attention to what Jordan Love has in Green Bay. I think that team is still solid enough. They're young, where I think they could be in wild card contention. And so if the Panthers are also in wild card contention, that could be a lot of fun too. I almost wish that game was at Green Bay, because on Christmas Eve, that would be a lot of fun.
Get the snow coming down at Lambeau.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's good. My 2 honorable mentions that I'm just going to throw out there, at Detroit. So the way we saw that Lions game go last year, where the Panthers just dominated them, just shellacked them, right? They ran for like 900 yards or something like that. It was crazy. I think that the Lions are going to be looking for a little bit of revenge in that situation. It's at Detroit. And the Lions are going to be opening up, the entire season playing the Chiefs. I think that Lions team is going to be very good, and that could be a good early kind of barometer test for the Panthers should they have a solid start to the season. And then I mentioned CJ Stroud and that kind of matchup. How about November 5th versus the Colts? We both talked a lot about how we see the potential with Anthony Richardson and how exciting it would be if he can put it all together with Indianapolis, having Josh Downs, who apparently he has a great connection with already. That's another one where it could be, I think, a fun matchup of 2 opposing sides of, okay, was it worth getting Bryce Young with the number 1 pick? Should you have tried to take more of a home run shot with Anthony Richardson? And I think the Colts could be at the very least competitive next year. That's another one that I kind of have circled that as an honorable mention.
Frank Reich going up against his former team in the Colts
That
as well.
too.
And I think that's going to be a Colts team that's very heavy RPO as well. If they can get Richardson, Jonathan Taylor going in the RPO game, running behind Quentin Nelson along the offensive line, that could be a very scary rushing attack in the 2023 season.
Yeah, that it would not surprise me if that ends up being one of the better Panthers games of the season for sure.